I'm Shaggy, the opinionated hippie, and today I'm going to be previewing and giving you my thoughts on the latest Zappa release, or the latest release that has been announced. One has just been released about a week and a half ago, as my recording of this, the Yugoslavian shows Zagreb, Ljubljana. But on the day that was released, or the night before, there was a press release for their next release, which is coming out December 16th, 2022. Today is the 24th, so we're about 10 days after the last release. 10 days after this was announced, and this was announced in a press release. It didn't appear in the Zappa.com store until like 5 or 6 days later. It didn't actually appear on their splash page until today, on the 24th, and it's still not the main thing. It's not the main headline. They're still advertising the Valley Girl 40th anniversary release, and this is kind of like a sub splash down below. But it finally did make their splash page 10 days after it was announced. So don't seem to be putting a lot of PR behind this yet. But it comes out on December 16th. It is a release that many of us have been waiting for and have been super excited about and have been talking about for a while. It is the Waka Wazoo release. I think that is the official title. Waka Wazoo. It is a 4 CD with a Blu-ray CD thrown in, if that's what it's called, a Blu-ray disc. They're for $60. So you get 4 CDs, the Blu-ray release of Waka Jawaka and Grand Wazoo for $60. There is also another release which throws in 2 t-shirts, a Grand Wazoo t-shirt and a Waka Jawaka t-shirt. So I think the pricing is pretty reasonable on this, considering previous Zappa Family Trust releases. So them coupling up with a different sort of team to do the production and the like PR and all that kind of stuff seems to have lowered their costs. But before I discuss what is on this is where I ranked everything else that relates to these 2 albums, so you can see where I am personally coming from. The album, The Grand Wazoo, the official album, ranked as my number 4 out of the 55 original Zappa releases. Waka Jawaka was number 14 out of the 55 original releases. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, they are elsewhere on this channel, Grand Wazoo and Waka Jawaka. So I think very, 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 very highly of those 2 albums. There were a bunch of post-Zappa passing away releases that all also made, obviously I ranked. The live Wazoo show, I ranked at number 6. The only known recorded show from that tour. We do get 1 track from, I think, the same show, right? That has finally been, I don't know if it was available or what the deal was, but it is on here. We get an approximate, a different mix of that song from that release. The Hot Rats box set, which I kind of am hoping this is similar to. I ranked at number 7 out of the original 55 releases. The 2 live documents from the Petit Wazoo tour, I ranked at number 11 and number 12. And we have another live show from the Petit Wazoo tour on this release. So everything's looking good so far. And then there were rehearsal tapes for Waka Jawaka that I ranked way down at number 51, just because there was stopping, starting, stopping, talking. The sound wasn't all that decent. I'm hoping that's not what this release is, and I don't think it is. This seems like it's more along the release of the Hot Rats Sessions box set. But here is what we're getting for this. I'm going to pause it really quick because I just found out my battery's about to die. So I'm going to plug the battery in, and then I'm going to resume. So what we essentially get are 3 separate things on this release. The first CDs are all session alternates and outtakes from the Grand Wazoo and Waka Jawaka recording sessions. This is the one that I think I've been pretty good at kind of predicting what we're going to get, just based on my experience with Frank, listening to live shows, knowing what's out there. I think I've done pretty good at like coming in a ballpark of what any release is going to be. Personally, on my own, whether you agree with me, I don't know, but I think I've done a pretty good job of assessing them. This is the thing I'm not sure about. This could be the best thing ever, these 2 CDs. We essentially get either an alternate take, a first take, an outtake, some studio version of every single song that appears on those 2 albums. I'm pretty sure it's every single song. over the course of the first CDs. And we have about 7 songs on the first CD, 8 songs on the second. Zappa Family Trust has been doing a pretty good job in multi-box sets to like max out the CDs, at least like 60 or 70 minutes. So it looks like we have really long versions of these songs. And if we base the Hot Rat Sessions box set, which I think is the closest thing we have that would approximate this as far as the band and the mentality of the recordings, Zappa, kind of like Kahn, the German art rock band, would like to go into a studio, have way too much material, and then edit it down to something that he could release. So my thoughts are, these are going to be versions of the songs that sound pretty close to the songs we know, with lots of extra solos or lots of extra improv, or Frank really allowing his musicians to stretch out so that he could then take the best of that and edit it down to a CD, to an album back then, not a CD, a vinyl, a 2 LP, a 2-side LP. So the first 2 CDs could possibly be one of the best things ever, or they could be stop, start, and like, frustrating. I'm going to think it's the former. This is what we get on CD 1. Take One of Your Mouth, an alternate take of Big Swifty, a version called Minimal Art, which would eventually be Eat That Question, a version of Blessed Relief, a version of Think It Over, which is the Grand Wazoo, a version of For Calvin and His Next 2 Hitchhikers, which I'm really interested to see how that might be different, and a version of Waka Waka. Great songs from amazing albums. If these are really just different versions of those songs with different solos or maybe slightly different arrangements and really good sound, it's going to be friggin' fantastic. CD 2, more of the same. A Cletus Auritus alternate take, or Cletus Auritus Auritus, a different version of Eat That Question, only this time it's called Eat That Question. So I'm going to imagine we see some evolution of that song over the course of these 2 versions. Different version of Big Swifty, different version of For Calvin. It just might be a one-shot deal. A Waka Waka, an alternate mix. We get alternate mixes of a bunch of these. So again, not sure how much those alternate mixes are really going to be alternate mixes. Alternate mix of Cletus Auritus and another alternate mix, and an alternate mix of Eat That Question. So, again, I haven't heard any of this stuff. I think I do have a tape somewhere that is like Grand Wazoo something, but I don't know if any of this stuff is on it. It's just like it's something that it's somewhere in all my like stacks and stacks of cases that I don't think I've listened to in decades. So I don't remember if I've heard any of these things. I don't think I have, but this is the stuff that I think is more of a roll of a dice that could be some of the best stuff ever. If it falls in line with what like the Hot Rat Sessions are still, whatever, this could be some of the best 2 CDs of music ever. Essentially, a brand new Grand Wazoo and a brand new Waka Waka. You can take these and you could make your new version of that. You have Calvin, Think It Over, Cletus, Eat That Question, and Blessed Relief. You can make a new version of Grand Wazoo. You have Big Swifty. You have Your Mouth. You have It Just Might Be a One-Shot Deal. You have Waka Waka. You can make a new version of Waka Waka. The idea that we may have Grand Wazoo V2 and Waka Waka V2 makes me really excited. I hope that's the case. But I don't know. So it's kind of a roll of the dice for these first 2 CDs. CD 3 is really strange. It is a bunch of demos and session outtakes from the George Duke recording sessions for songs that appeared on, I think, not his first 3 albums, but the 3 albums that followed him being in Frank's band. So I think 2 of them, 1 he released in 74, 2 he released in 75. Those are good albums. They're jazz, funk, with a really clean 70s sound, little Zappa-esque. Anytime Duke solos, it is clearly Duke soloing. It sounds like they could be Grand Wazoo jams, sound like they could be solos in like Don't You Ever Wash That Thing, or in like a 74 band. Sounds like they could be solos in like the pre-Dupree's Paradise, where they set up maybe a jazz funk groove and George solos over there. One of them has vocals on the album. I don't know if these are instrumental versions. There is an instrumental version of Uncle Remus on here, which George co-wrote with Frank. That song appears on Apostrophe. The official version, which appears on George Duke, I think it's the second album that came out in 75. It's a slightly different arrangement, and it takes a little getting used to it because it doesn't sound like Frank's. It's obviously Uncle Remus, but it's Duke singing it. It's interesting. I don't think it's good as Frank's version, but it's pretty interesting. But essentially, you get four demo master versions of songs for Love, Psychosomatic Dung, Uncle Remus, and Love. Those are all pretty much, I think two of them are instrumentals. One of them has vocals on the original. These just seem like they're just versions of that. So again, those are some pretty interesting takes. Those are some pretty good albums. Definitely a lot more of a polished, clean 70s jazz funk sound. It sounds very much of that era. But these could be interesting. Maybe they're stretched out. Maybe because he's working with Zappa, he really lets them like go to further lengths, and Frank helped George edit it down and make like, album choices so it was more digestible. But we get essentially 7 songs from the George Duke sessions. 2 versions of For Love, 2 versions of Psychosomatic Dung, 2 versions of Love, and then an instrumental version of Uncle Remus. Who knows? Check out those albums. They're kind of good listening. They're definitely not as out there as Frank, but there's some good stuff on theirs. George has good energy. He's a good player. Interesting sort of jazz guy. Little funk edge. But then the rest of that CD, you get that mix of Approximate from the Grand Wazoo tour. And then you get the beginning, and here, why they did it this way, I don't know. You get the beginning of what looks like a complete Petite Wazoo tour from the Winterland Ballroom in San Francisco, December 15, 1972. Why they didn't, I mean, maybe it's because of the length of the songs, but it seems like they could have had, like CD3 could have been the beginning of the concert, and then it would spill over into CD4, and then you get the George Duke stuff. But I guess they maybe recorded the George Duke stuff before this show, so it's all in sequential order, chronological order, I don't know. But you have the opening band introductions, then you have Little Dots, which you can hear on the album Little Dots, unreleased song other than this live version on Little Dots. And then CD4 is the rest of the show. You get an America Drinks, which sounds awesome with this band, which was not on either one of those Petite Wazoo releases, right? Yeah, it was not on either one of those. Montana, Farther Oblivion, we can always use a lot more of those. A Cosmic Debris, and a Chunga's Revenge. So we get some nice stuff that's from the live Petite Wazoo. And that's all of CD4. So I'm assuming, I think the Chunga's Revenge is kind of long. I think the Farther Oblivion is definitely kind of long. The other ones are a little bit shorter, but have some really nice sort of Petite Wazoo, jazz-ish, big band flavors in it. So yeah, so that's what we get for this. And like, I'm pretty positive the Petite Wazoo show is going to be fantastic, and I'm going to love it. I'm imagining the sound quality is comparable to Little Dots and Imaginary Diseases, which I ranked as 11 and 12 out of the 55. No idea what to think about the George Duke stuff. I like those albums, but again, they're not the greatest thing in the world. They're just really good, solid jazz fusion 70s listening. And those first 2 discs, no idea. Could be the best thing ever. Could be a little more of a disappointment, like, oh, way too many stops and starts, and this isn't as different as I thought it would be. But I'm assuming this is everything that we have from this era. And so I got it. I'm hopefully going to enjoy it. I'm definitely going to listen to it. I'm kind of excited about it. But yeah, that's it. That's what's on here. So a lot of weird, different little flavors from this year. A lot of George Duke. A lot of those 2 albums, and then what I'm sure is going to be a fantastic live show. But yeah, but that's it. So I was going to check. I'm pretty sure America Drinks was not on Imaginary Diseases, right? I think I would have remembered that if it was. But yeah, if you have thoughts on this release, if you've heard any of these outtakes, let me know down in the comments, because I would love to know if I just forgot all about the fact or if I've listened to those. I don't know. I'm rambling right now because I'm looking up those. Yeah, America Drinks is not on either one of those, so that's a pretty exciting release. I don't think Montana is on either one of those 2. So either is Chunga Revenge. So we get 3 really neat release songs, and we can always hear more Father Oblivions. So I'm really okay with that. But yeah, anyways, I'm rambling at this point. It's been a long Monday. But anyways, yeah. Let me know your thoughts, comment, share, like, subscribe. You know how all this works. And if you want to know any more about any of the albums I've mentioned, I have reviews on all those elsewhere on this channel. So yeah, but that's it, people. Thanks. I appreciate your watching. Peace, and go listen to music, people. Go listen to music. Bye.